Thank you, Teresa Cullen from Broxtowe CLP, who've just made the news this week for not very good reasons, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure as many people are concerned. Teresa, I'd just like to start off this discussion. I'd just like to show a screenshot of the letter that has been sent by the
I wrote,
executive of Broxtowe CLP, which reads, as a result of the undemocratic decision of the NEC to exclude the only local candidate from the Broxtowe long list instead of leaving us with 3 out-of-area contenders, we are resigning as a CLP executive committee. Broxtowe is an active, innovative and successful CLP, all of which is down to the skills and dedication of our members. This commitment to winning Broxtowe for Labour surely entitles members to a fair choice in the parliamentary selection process. All CLP business is run by volunteers, and we cannot continue dedicating our time and effort to a party that does not value or respect its members. It seems clear to us that the NEC have purposefully blocked hugely popular local councillor Greg Marshall, leaving a choice of candidates who have shown no dedication of time or effort to the CLP. The party has acted in bad faith, and this is not something we can support. Broxtowe is a key marginal and sits on the edge of the so-called red wall. The road to government runs through the Midlands, and local people deserve local representation. For that option to be removed by London officials is not something we can quietly accept, and we therefore resign from all our respective roles on the CLP Executive Committee. And there you are at the top, Teresa Cullen, Chair. So this not selecting Greg Marshall for the long list does seem totally bizarre. I mean, he's a local councillor. He was the candidate in 2017 and 2019. Can you tell us about Greg, a bit more about Greg, and also who the 3 candidates that you've got left are?
I can tell you about Greg. Greg's really well known. He's a really well-respected councillor. I mean, I've known Greg for a very long time because his dad, who was a very a very good local unionist, union man, not unionist. He was a friend of my husband, so I've known Greg a long time, and I've served alongside him as a councillor. I'm a local borough councillor for the last 8 years. But this process this whole thing, we're very upset to be presented with a fait accompli that doesn't include Greg on the list. But it's not necessarily about Greg. It's about the fact that the Labour Party have taken away the choice from us of who we would choose to have as our local candidate. I mean, if Greg was on the long list, many of us would have voted for him. But, maybe some people wouldn't have. But this has taken us by surprise because Greg's really popular. He's very well known. He's liked by everybody. I know you've met him a few times, Crispin. He's liked by everybody. He's a really good guy. He's very bright, very intelligent, very committed to all the work he does. He's a senior project officer in the Environment Agency, big environmentalist. He's been involved in local community politics for a very long time. He's liked by people on all factions. And I hate that word, factions. But he's liked by people across the broad spectrum of the Labour Party. He's backed by Lord Vernon Coker. Is backed by people that you wouldn't expect to back somebody. Nobody meets Greg and doesn't like him. And he's just so devoted to the union movement and the Labour Party. If they were looking for the highest quality of candidates, Greg is that. And he's, he's just a good guy. So it doesn't make sense to us on any level.
I mean, can I just come in? The thing I noticed when I was in Broxtowe, and also from speaking to you before several times up there and planning events, when I came up to do comedy shows there, there is a kind of lack of factionalism in the CLP. That there are lots of different opinions, but you all seem to get together and work together for the common good of Labour winning in Broxtowe, or Labour gaining council seats, or just having a kind of Labour, a CLP that everyone can hang out and enjoy each other's company. And I mean, that certainly would seem to me my impression of Broxtowe. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that there's not, you know, we've got, and we don't actually know what the membership is at the moment because of a lack of transparency in the Labour Party, but around about 1,000 odd members. Some might have resigned recently, but maybe a tiny handful of people who are a little bit disaffected on both, you know, both ends of the spectrum. But by and large, we've all known each other a really long time, get along really well, do lots of social events. We've previously had our Labour hub, we've run food banks, we've done all sorts of things. And, you know, we've worked really hard on really promoting that whatever else we know we're better than the Tories. And in Broxtowe, it's a 2-horse race.
Yeah.
In the country it is, let's be honest. We are, you know, whatever our individual opinions are, we have to win because we're always better than the Tories. So we all work together to achieve that. We're not, you know, we're not a divided constituency. We're definitely not predominantly one wing or other wing, which is why it's sad that this has happened to us.
I mean, it's a community feel to the whole constituency. So the offence of bringing in people from outside to be the candidate is greater in Broxtowe than most CLPs, because you have built such a community. It's like, why can't we have someone from our own community that we've been building as our representative? I mean, that just makes perfect sense, and it is an offence, especially to Broxtowe. Look, I want to show people about the community that we're talking about, the kind of thing that Broxtowe has been doing in the past few years. And I'm just going to show a short video here.
We are out and proud about doing this as Labour Party, because this is not just about the Labour Party, but it's tapping into that community spirit that we thought we'd lost in our heartlands, and we clearly haven't. I'm Jane Marshall. I've been a Labour Party member for 30 years. During the election, we had an excellent community organiser helping us, and he instilled in us how important it was that we should be rooted in the community. We thought about this idea of opening up this community hub. This shop was open, hadn't been used for a while. We pulled the shutters up, and then all our members helped decorate it all. I didn't know all members could do it. We had an electrician, painter, somebody come and checked all the wiring. We had people donating stuff, painting. So it was really, really member-led. Over the past 18 months, we've always had food outside on a shelf, on a rack, and then we say, if you need, take, and if you can, donate. So it's always had food there, and a lot of people, again, within the community come and take some food, and others donate it. But then when we were told we had to shut the shop because of the crisis, the pandemic, we thought, no, we've really, really got to still reach out to these people that are vulnerable and that have relied on us over the past 18 months. So we put a notice on the door saying, if you want a food parcel, contact this number, and that was my number. And it's gone from that, which was 1 or 2 bags a week, and last week we did 136 bags. We fed over 1,000 people, raised £7,000 from our members and supporters. We've had a lot of lovely messages, a lot of thank yous, and it's, you know, people said, this is the first time some of my children have had food in the belly in the last week. The elderly were told to isolate, so they did, but then they couldn't do online shopping, so we filled that gap. When people phone up, we say we're Broxtowe Labour. We send the food out in the Labour carrier bags, so they do know it's us that's doing it. And this is what was done in the miners' strike, and before that, this is what we should be doing, getting back into our communities. And we've reached communities that we've never even been. We've door knocked at elections, but we haven't really got a hold into what that community needs. And this is just the start of it. This is what the Labour Party needs going forward.
An incredible story there, how you built something up, and then the lockdown came and you helped all these people out, and seeing that all those people in the hub helping out, painting and decorating and sitting around drinking cups of tea, whatever that, you know, whatever it takes. I mean, that's what the Labour Party should be about, isn't it?
that's a really lovely video. It's nice to watch that again. But that's just one of just many things that we've done locally. We've, you know, and building out of that, that was during the pandemic. Building out of that, a number of us got together and actually formed a charity that, and you know, we've got, we're now trustees of a charity that runs a food bank that's a very big operation called Broxtowe Community Projects. And that's just one of many different initiatives that we've jointly done. We've got people that help feed the homeless. We've got people that run lunch clubs for elderly people, all sorts of different things in the community, all working together to make sure that even though we don't have a Labour MP currently in Broxtowe, we're making sure that Broxtowe is looked after in the way that a Labour administration would look after it. And on the local council, we don't have a majority on the local council. We're in an alliance with the Lib Dems and the Independents. But even then, by working carefully and really making sure, you know, that we make it all about the community, we're managing to deliver a Labour agenda in the community, even in those circumstances. And as you say, we're doing that because we work together. We find out that we have a whole lot more fun. We have quite a lot of fun. We have a nice time doing this, and we get much more done. You know, we've got some extremely creative and amazing people in our constituency. We're quite lucky because we've got a university and a major teaching hospital. So we've got a lot of people with a lot of resource that can support the work. But we're also right on the edge of the red wall. So we've got a community in great need as well. So, and it's been taken away from us.
Well, like you say, you're the red wall seat, but you're a proper margin. I mean, isn't it like whoever wins Broxtowe wins the general election almost? Like
one of those.
It works that way, yeah.
Yeah.
So what?
For me, it's the process. Let me tell you what actually happened, because I think this is important to get this across. We've actually been waiting. You know, we've been wondering why, when a lot of the seats around us have already selected for candidates, and we've been waiting because we want to get on with it. We wanted to get on with getting ready for the general election. So when the regional office of the Labour Party let us know that we were next in line, we were actually, oh, good, let's get this done. And we were ready for it. Now, locally, Greg's been our candidate in the last 2 elections, and he's really, really popular. So locally, nobody locally thought, oh, he's like the best of us, as it were. So nobody locally thought, oh, I'll apply for this as well when it went live, because we were all backing Greg. We were all behind Greg. And, we thought that the Labour Party would be true to its word, that local people could have local choice. So, I mean, as chair of the constituency Labour Party, I sat in a meeting with a Labour Party staffer and the rest of the executive committee. And the staffer talked us through the process, that we would form a selection committee, that there would be a week-long opportunity for people to apply. We would then be presented with the long list. From that, we would put that list out to our local branches. Branches would have to meet very quickly so that they could make nominations to go towards the shortlist. We put in process getting branches to think how quickly could they meet. We knew we'd got to do this process in a few short weeks. We know, because of links that we've got with unions, because you probably know this, but to be a candidate for a PPC, you've got to get a union to sponsor you.
Right.
So we know that there was at least 12 applicants. We know who some of them were. And from the executive committee, we elected what's called a selection committee, who would receive the long list and put that out to the branches. And that meeting was due to take place last Monday. Well, it did take place last Monday at 5 o'clock. We were a bit taken by surprise that somebody called Anna Joy Rickard tweeted out before the meeting that she was shortlisted. And this was the long listing meeting.
Wow.
And she tweeted it out before. So, I mean, I tweeted out, you're not even on the shortlist. We haven't done the shortlist yet. Anyway, we get to this meeting. I wasn't on it. I wasn't on the selection committee. The meeting takes place at 5 o'clock last Monday, and the meeting was presented with a short list of 3 people and told there was no need to do the process of nominations. Greg wasn't on the list.
So the meeting's told, was this an official in the meeting or just a message to the meeting?
There was an NEC official in the meeting.
And NEC official, right? So someone on the NEC?
Yeah.
All right. You won't say that is?
No.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But the list was 3 people. We know 12 applied. We know Greg applied.
So the 12 people, the procedure was changed between the time you met that regional official and the shortlist, the long listing meeting that was supposed to take last Monday. They changed the whole procedure to make it just a short list of 3, and Greg wasn't on that list.
Yeah.
That is, sorry, do you mind if I say, but that just is such a stitch up. I mean, I can't see how that isn't just to block Greg. Right, so there's 3 candidates. Do you know the 3? Have they been locally active at all?
I mean, one of them I'd heard of before. He hasn't been locally active, but he's an East Midlands Labour Party member, and I'd heard of him. Not necessarily good things, but 2 of them I'd never even heard of before.
Oh my! And you've been sort of in the middle of Broxtowe CLP for a while. Yeah. If you hadn't heard of 2 of the candidates at all, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. No. Let me say it. The 3 candidates, 2 were from London, and 1 is a local person who we know to be a very close friend of our regional director. Now, what we since know, what we didn't know at the time, but we've subsequently found out, which is part of the reason that we've decided that we're not going to be a part of all of this, is that the candidate that's a friend of our regional director actually sent a message to one of our members before the whole process started to say that Greg was going to be blocked and would they support him. So that is terrible. And then furthermore, we know from one of the candidates is called Anna Joy Rickard, and we didn't know her at all before, but we now know that she's a previous councillor in London who managed to lose a safe Labour seat to the Greens, and she's recently tried to be selected in High Peak and didn't get selected. But she has managed to, probably quite unwittingly, but in first of all announcing that she was shortlisted before the long listed meeting had happened, she subsequently managed to visit one of the people that was on the selection committee who resigned. And when he questioned her as to why she announced she was shortlisted before the meeting had even taken place, she showed him an email that she'd had telling her that she was shortlisted. So clearly the candidates, the 3, had been informed that they were shortlisted before the long listing meeting had taken place. And subsequently, when I wrote to her and asked her to clarify, what had happened, she emailed back to me and said that she's had to sign a candidate's contract to agree to not talk about the selection procedure during the selection process. So clearly, even though at the time we were a bit taken aback by what has happened, evidence subsequently has told us that it's an absolute stitch up. Now, we shouldn't be, it isn't, it is about, for me, it's about Greg because he's my friend and I would have supported him. But this is about Broxtowe, where we really work hard for the Labour Party all of the time. And somehow, whatever's happening in the Labour Party at the moment, we're being presented with a choice of candidates that somebody else has chosen and decided we must have. And we know one is a very close friend of our regional director. And we know the other one, from looking at her profile since, has worked for the Tony Blair Institute thing.
Right.
And we've also got a third candidate that none of us have heard of, called, I can't remember her name, Juliet Campbell. And she, I mean, on a short list, you have to have a woman and you have to have a BAME. That's the Labour Party rules. So this is a woman of colour, a black woman from London, who's a Labour councillor in London. And well, we're assuming that she's been put on the shortlist because you have to have a BAME candidate. We know that one of the applicants was a son of a local county councillor, a very popular local county councillor who's also BAME. So we feel that they could have shortlisted, he's not local to Broxtowe, but he's local to one of our neighbouring constituencies, Gedling. They could have shortlisted a local BAME representative, but you know, there's some feeling that maybe we might have selected them by mistake if they had have done. So we're being properly stitched up, and and that's why it's not about Greg. It's about the fact that there's a process that we were lied to about, and everything was put in place before they even bothered to have the meeting with us. And that's not good enough. And if we're treated like that, why would we stay and volunteer? We're not paid staffers, we're volunteers. We think this process is corrupted. We think this process is corrupted because of all of these things. And because I said to you before, we've got some people of extraordinary talent in Broxtowe who didn't put themselves forward because we were backing Greg. And people would have put themselves forward if we'd have known Greg was going to be blocked. So we think the process is corrupted and they should start it again.
Right. Have you been, what kind of steps have you taken to try and make that happen? Other than talking to me, of course.
Well, we've been talking to everybody we can, and you know, we've had a lot of support from people, and you know, there's been statements, which is quite unheard of, statements from unions asking the Labour Party to reconsider. There's been tweets from different MPs asking the Labour Party, asking Keir Starmer to intervene and reconsider. We've asked the Labour Party to reconsider. At the moment, they're blanking us. Members locally have not even been informed now of if there's even going to be a hustings and an opportunity to select from the three. They've cut us out of the whole process completely. It's baffling. It's baffling.
Wow. So yeah, the fight, you're carrying on the fight. So it's not worth speculating about what would happen if one of these candidates is put in place, because you're not accepting that reality yet.
No, and also there's a feeling of, well, I would say, you know, a constituency-wide heartbreak that this is happening to us. There's a lot of outrage. Feelings are running really high. People are really puzzled, upset, quite devastated. It's having an effect on all of us, and we don't know why it's happening, but also we can't accept it, can we? If we accept it, we could, this has happened to other constituencies, we know, you know, we could all just, I mean, we've said, you know, as an executive committee, if you're going to treat us like this, we're not going to give our time for free. It's hard work being an executive. We can say, well, we're not going to help. We won't help to canvass. We won't do anything like that. But all of that, you know, we've got a local election coming up in a few weeks' time. Candidates are already selected for that. You know, what do we do with that? Do we hand the local authority, do we hand the council over to the Tories because of what the Labour Party have done to us nationally. Greg is already selected as a candidate in the local elections. A number of us are. What shall we do? Shall we throw the towel in and, you know, just say get on with it then, but knowing that if we do that, the effect is on the local residents, isn't it? What a place to be in.
I mean, just to finish it, I mean, do you think that the poll lead that Labour's got is sort of massive 20%, whatever lead? Do you think that the party centrally are thinking we can win any seat now, so we can put in any candidate? It doesn't matter what the local CLP think or whether they help us or not, they'll get the votes anyway because we're 20% ahead. Is there a kind of complacency in the National Party, do you think?
I'd like to think that it was just that simple, and I'd say that they were wrong. But I think it's more that even though we're not, you know, we don't operate around factions in Broxtowe, I think the National Party does. And actually they're using this opportunity to put in place people that will change the face of the Labour Party forever.